Good evening, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, September the 26th, 2017. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows this week. We are on the air late, so we want to get right into things here. As always, here as we start the show, I want to remind you all the ways in which you can interact and contribute to our show, have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Please remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure you like our fan page once you're on it, once you find it. All right, so here's the thing. Before I get into it, because I don't want to ramble on here to start the show because we have a lot to do. A couple of changes I made to the shows this week. And I was going back and forth on this, and this is not just because we're on the air late. It's just a lot of things happened today with sports, the world of sports today. A lot of big stories. We already had a lot to talk about, and now we have even more to talk about. So, with all that in mind, I was already debating doing this. So here's the deal. Tonight we're just going to do a sports show. No wrestling, no entertainment. Obviously, we weren't going to do entertainment tonight anyway. But we were going to do wrestling, the fallout from No Mercy, and do Raw and SmackDown. But you know what? There's probably a lot to talk about from No Mercy. There's probably a lot to talk about from Raw last night. I don't want to be unfair to our wrestling fans. I don't want to be unfair to anybody that wants us to be able to do a lot of time on those particular topics. So in order to be able to do justice to everything, I made this change to the programming this week because I felt like it was in the best interest of all of that. So what we're going to do tonight is just sports exclusive because we have a lot to do. We have the MLB pennant races, which there are some races, believe it or not. We didn't think there were going to be, but there are. So we will talk about those. We have a lot of NBA stuff to get to. The Carmelo Anthony trade that took place. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Dwayne Wade, his buyout with the Bulls, and the likelihood here that he's going to sign with the Cavs tomorrow is looking more like a certainty, not a likelihood. We'll talk about that tonight. We got the NFL Week 3 to discuss, and boy, there's a lot to do there. And then, of course, the big story of today, this big NCAA basketball scandal that broke this morning, and there's a lot to talk about there. One of the things that we've done on this show over the years, and some of our best shows have come from talking about some of these NCAA, scandals that pop up. And this is a scandal that's, this is not driven by the NCAA. This is an FBI investigation. There's a lot of layers to it. I'm still trying to digest it and trying to understand some parts of it. So, we're going to do a little bit on that. We probably won't do a lot with it as much as we probably would like to because I think this is a story that's, still developing and we don't know a lot of the details yet. We only know the details that are out there right now, but we will talk about it. So that's a lot to do tonight, a lot of sports stuff to do tonight. And it all requires attention. And, that's why I thought it was best to just keep it to those things tonight, just the sports side of things tonight. And that's what we're going to do. So very lot in mind with that. So the wrestling stuff, Raw and SmackDown, No Mercy, Fallout, we'll do all that on Thursday this week. So I have a little bit of an entertainment wrestling combo, which we've done before. So we'll do that. And also on Thursday, of course, we'll do the box office beat, TV highlights, and we'll continue our fall TV report card series. As we look at some of the new and returning shows and give our reviews of them and recommendations and all that good stuff. And that will be on Thursday. For those wondering about the NFL preview, I've been teasing that for the last couple weeks. It's really hard right now of everything that's going on to do that. So I'm thinking what we're going to do right now is we'll probably do that next Tuesday. I know it's October, but I think we did it in October one year, so it's not out of the realm. And that, the way these teams have played, so I think having an extra week isn't the worst thing in the world to kind of look at them and see where we're at. So NFL preview we'll do next week, more than likely on Tuesday. So you can look forward to that. And then, that'll be next week. And I think we also will have next Thursday, if I'm right, we'll be doing an all wrestling show. So maybe, I don't know. Depends on timing. Because sometimes with these brand exclusive pay-per-views, we don't always do all wrestling shows. We did one last week, but I thought it was a card worthy of it. So I don't know if we'll do one next week yet or not, but we will be doing some kind of wrestling-related pay-per-view preview type deal next week as we look ahead to WWE Hell in a Cell. So you can look forward to that next week as well, as long with all the usual stuff. The MLB playoffs start next week. We'll be live on air opposite those next week. So we'll talk about those, do a preview, all that kind of stuff next week. So it'll be a big week on the show next week, and that might be. People keep asking me, and I'm going to talk more about this on Thursday. I don't want to go into any details because I'm still feeling some things out, a couple of little things I got to decide on and work on. I don't want to go into it tonight, but I will say this. People have been asking me, well, when are we going to start these changes? When is all this stuff going to happen here? People want to know if we're going to do it next week because we're approaching the anniversary. It ain't going to be next week. That's all you need to know. Okay, it ain't going to be next week. Might be the week after, maybe. We'll see. I'd like it to be a little bit more of a transition. So, but we'll talk more about that on Thursday. We have a lot to get through tonight. So I don't want to, belabor that point that I don't really want to talk about tonight. So that's a little bit of insight into this week, next week, and beyond. Again, we have a lot. Mike is not on the air right now, so I'm going to start here. And there's some things that I can talk about that he wouldn't like to talk about. We're not going to start with the college basketball stuff. We'll leave that alone for right now. We'll start with the football. Now I'm going to start by talking about. Well, actually, Mike just did jump on the air right now. So if you can hear me, Mike, you're in the spotlight. Can you hear me, Mike?
Fortunately.
Okay. So Mike's on. I said if you weren't here, so I'll just make I made a change to the programming tonight because of all the stuff that's going on with sports, with that whole NCAA basketball scandal, which I'm sure you heard about.
I've heard of several scandals.
Your volume is very low, by the way.
I'll think of several things. I can see several scandals.
Yes. So we got that. We got Carmelo Anthony. We got Dwayne Wade, and this football thing and that. So I decided with all that, I thought we're going to move the wrestling stuff because obviously there's a lot of ranting to do about No Mercy. So I think I decided it was best to leave that for Thursday because we don't have a lot on Thursday entertainment-wise, and I thought we need to have a pretty blunt discussion about what WWE did on Sunday night. So
I believe the term is shit the bed.
But it's good to know that SmackDown had a decent main event tonight.
I know what it is. I haven't seen it yet.
I think you'll like it.
I'm pretty sure I will, even though we've seen this match more than once or twice.
Hey, at least it gets a certain somebody into the A program on the show.
Right? Isn't that crazy that he could prove himself instead of just feuding with like Mike Kanellis and nobody?
Yeah. Either way, yeah. But yeah, it sounds. It's good to know SmackDown knows what their big program is. What starts the show and ends the show, Mike? What starts the show and ends the show?
Not Jinder Mahal.
They don't even give Jinder Mahal. They don't even give Jinder Mahal the 9:00 segment. They gave that to Orton and Rusev. They gave it to Randy Orton and Rusev tonight.
Rusev is great, and Randy Orton can be motivated. I guess
Rusev was actually entertaining. So yeah.
Rusev's always entertaining.
So, but yeah, so we'll talk about it. We got a lot to mine through with the wrestling, and there's a lot to talk about there, and so we'll get into that on Thursday along with the entertainment stuff, like I said. So, I'll All right, so here's the deal, okay? As I said before Mike on the air, I was going to start with the football. I'm going to talk about the on-the-field stuff. I'm going to address the gigantic elephant in the room from the weekend in a minute, okay? Because obviously you can't avoid it, but we'll talk about and look, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because guess what? It's another week where more or less it was just terrible play. I did see a little bit in the way of offense, and not just because the defenses were that poor. I thought there was there's some better offense this week in a number of ways. I thought the Bills looked better on offense, and the Bills were probably, as far as big upsets go, that was a big upset. That was probably the upset, one of the big upsets of the season so far, the Bills beating the Broncos, and I thought they did a good job. I thought Tyrod Taylor did a good job. I thought Bills defensively, we know the defense is there. That, you know, we knew they were going defensively. They're going to keep themselves in a lot of games with their defense. It's just whether they can put up points. And this week they put up points, and they did it on a good defense. And Denver is now. I mean, granted, again, Denver has been a little rough around the edges, like every team. But they were one of those teams that I didn't think was terrible in the first 2 weeks. They weren't great, but they weren't terrible. So. You know, I thought that was a well-earned victory for Buffalo there. It was one of the better played games I've seen so far, so good for the Bills. Patriots, to me, laid a huge egg. Could have easily lost that game to Houston. I thought defensively, I thought Houston played terrible. Just the one thing you've been able to say about them over the years is their defense has been good, and their defense has not been good. Their defense has been terrible, whether it's part of the whole theme that we've seen so far in the NFL this year, which is bad quality of play, or if it's just that their defense isn't as good as advertised, I don't know. But they did not play defensively well in that game on Sunday, and they blew it in the latter half of the game. Patriots come back and win. Devastating loss for the Texans, and Patriots survive. And I don't know how you feel about the Patriots right now. Defensively, they're a mess. Look, I thought Deshaun Watson did a good job with Houston. I thought he looked okay. But I think the Patriots defense has a habit so far this year of making offenses look better than they might actually be. They just, you saw them on opening night against Kansas City. And again, maybe this is a manifestation of the teams taking a little bit longer than they should to get going. I don't know. But realistically, if you've seen the first 3 weeks, the one thing you can come away with is the Patriot defense is a mess. It is a huge mess. The secondary is a mess. They're a mess, and they're just a mess. So we'll see. We'll see in the coming weeks here how they do. Right now, I don't have any confidence in them. But, I mean, even with that, you want to say, maybe it's because the Patriot defense was that bad. You want to say it, I can understand it, but I thought even still, Deshaun Watson showed a lot in that game. I thought he did good in that game. So maybe there's something for the Texans to build on here, offensively speaking, as we go on here. I thought the Cowboys had a good win last night. I think you worry a little bit about Arizona. I think you really have to be, because on both sides of the ball, they're making a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad mistakes. Once again, even though I love Bruce Arians, late in the game, they don't manage the clock. They were terrible managing the clock late in the game. That's something that's always fouled that team with him. Arizona, I think, is in a lot of trouble right now, so keep an eye on them. And the Cowboys get a big win last night. I thought the Redskins beating the Raiders was a big win, and I thought the Redskins played that. To me, so far, that particular game was one of the better played games still. I thought that was a big win for the Redskins because the Raiders haven't played as poorly as some of these other teams. They earned that victory. And I thought the Redskins played very well in that game on both sides of the ball. I mean, there were still some mistakes that you don't want to see at this particular juncture, but, you know, I think it was okay. So that was a big win for them and a tough loss for the Raiders. Ravens laid a huge egg in London against the Jaguars, lost 44-7, a terrible game for them. You know, some people say, oh, you know, sometimes you travel overseas and it messes. Yeah, you know, some of these games tend to always be ugly. Wasn't ugly for Jacksonville. Jacksonville put up 44 points. And if there's anything we can say about Jacksonville in the first 3 weeks, offensively, they got it going. You know, it hasn't been ugly for them. In fact, they've been relatively impressive at offense for the most part. And defensively this week, I don't know if you put the blame. I mean, you can give some credit to the defense, I guess, but Ravens just didn't do anything. You know, maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's just that the Ravens offensively are not like a lot of these teams are. Sometimes on both sides of the football, some of these teams are just not ready yet. We talked about this, how bad the quality of play has been, and maybe the Ravens offensively might still be falling into that trap of just not being there yet. Steelers got upset by the Bears. You know, you saw that. Colts barely beat the Browns, which I don't know if that's an indictment on the Colts or if the Browns just, I mean, they've been in almost every game they played. Buccaneers look like one of the more impressive teams last week, and then this week they go into Minnesota and lay an egg and lose 34-17. They did lay an egg. They just didn't play well. This did not play well. I mean, Sam Bradford's out of the game. Case Keenum comes in. He puts up 369 yards and 3 TDs. That's a terrible performance by your defense, and your offense did nothing either. So Jets get off the schneid and win a game against the Dolphins. I don't know which one's worse, the Jets or the Dolphins, but this game kind of shows you maybe the Dolphins are. And the Giants, who really needed this game against the Eagles. And they played better. You know, Eli had a decent game. So, you know, Eli had the better game, but generally speaking, the Giants still lost. They're 0-3. And again, important to note, they have lost 2 games against their conference. All right? That's pivotal because even if you make a comeback here, if it comes down to a tiebreaker in your conference, you're done. So that's a pivotal statistic to remember going forward. Eagles look good, I thought on both sides of the ball, I thought they looked particularly well. Again, on that better side of the coin, in terms, all these teams, none of them look great, but on the better side of it were the Eagles. Giants, you know, better. The penalty from Odell Beckham Jr. was a bad one, and one that's gotten a lot of attention, one that's got a lot of Giants fans upset because he doesn't claim to care about it. I'm not going to get into the whole celebration thing, and he's selfish in that because I think it speaks for itself, but it's not something. It's something that a lot of people are upset about, and the Giants are in trouble. Saints and Panthers. Saints get a big win. They needed it. They're 0-2. They get it. Panthers just didn't play well, and you know, again, it's the same story with the Panthers. You're gonna, you know, if you don't play good defense, your offense doesn't get you back in the game. You're gonna lose the game. I mean, that's what the thing with the Panthers. They need to play. They almost, you know, a couple years ago they just found ways to score. Now they're not, and that's where their problem is. If the defensively they don't have a good game, then they're in trouble. Titans get a huge win and perhaps one of the biggest wins of the weekend, other than that. Other than the Bills or the Broncos, Titans beating the Seahawks is a huge win. And look, Seattle, I thought played better offensively. Russell Wilson had 4 TDs. It's just their defense didn't show up, and that's kind of been the story for Seattle this year. It's when one shows up, the other doesn't, and they're kind of caught in between. And that's a huge win for the Titans. Huge win. Bengals had a devastating loss to the Packers in overtime. We'll see what happens there. I thought Andy Dalton and the Bengals played better. So not great. Chiefs did their thing against the Chargers. So, you know, there's a lot of games here, a lot of big things that happen, some big upsets. Falcons won a game late against the Lions. Still, the picture hasn't really materialized. I don't know if you call it, again, the quality of play as a whole is still pretty bad. Some teams are on the better side of it. Like, again, the Bills, I thought, played well. I thought the Falcons are playing really good football. The Chiefs are playing, I mean, they're on the better side of the coin, playing decent football. None of these teams are playing great, but there's some that are playing okay or decent, and then there's some that are kind of in between. And you might put the Patriots there. You might put the maybe the Titans there, Packers, you know. And then there's some that are just playing awful. And that's a lot of teams. We'll see. Week 4, if you remember, as I've said, the last couple of years, this has been a thing with the NFL, where it's taken a long time. In September, it's almost been extended training camp. But in the last few years, it's usually began to turn around week 3, week 4. This week was a little bit better, not great. We'll see. Maybe this week will be the turn. If not, you hope by week 5 it will be, because otherwise it's going to be hard to tell what it's going to be hard to tell of these teams who to believe and who to buy as an elite team, who to buy as a contender early on here, and who not to buy. You know, it's going to be very hard. Very hard. So I would say as a whole, a better week 3, but not great. Not great. So, you know, the leagues, if I'm the league, I'd still be a little more worried. I'd still be worried about it, because this can't keep happening every year, and it gets worse and worse every year. Can't happen. Can't happen. But it is what it is, and you hope that it's going to turn next week. That's all you can say. Because it's been a rough start. As for my picks, it hasn't been a good start for me either. It's another bad week, 2-4. I had the Falcons over the Lions and the Cowboys over the Cards. My only 2 wins: Giants over Eagles, Panthers over Saints, Bucks over Vikings, Raiders over Redskins were all losses for me here in week 3. So not a good week for me at all. Again, it's been very hard. You can't tell with these teams. It's been upsets. It's been teams that you didn't think would win games. Winning games. It's been crazy. You don't know how to buy any of these teams. You just don't. So that makes it hard to pick them. Now, you know, this week you went into week 4. You got some old school rivalries, the Bears and the Packers. You got a couple of games you never thought you'd look at, like the Bills and the Falcons. And that Lion-Viking game might end up being decent. Panthers-Patriots sounds like a good game. Steelers-Ravens, old school rivalry there. Titans-Texans has a little bit of drama to it now with the way Tennessee's played. Giants-Buccaneers has some drama because the Giants, it's a must-win. Otherwise, they don't. I don't think they have a chance. Raiders-Broncos is a game a lot of people circled on their calendar. Colts-Seahawks, maybe some interest there based on how Seattle's playing. Maybe the Colts do have a chance. And you got the Monday night game next week, which is the Redskins and the Chiefs, which now has some pop to the way the Redskins play. We're going to start with that game. It's going to be my first pick'em game. Redskins-Chiefs. I think it should be a good game, but I like the Chiefs here just because I think came into this season. I think the Chiefs are one of those teams that you can buy, even going into the season, based on the way they're 3-0. Even though, again, none of these teams have been overly impressive. The Chiefs, you know, we've seen what they've been able to do so far. You know, maybe they've been a little bit more consistent than most, and we already knew that they were going to be a team in contention going into this year. So I think that there's a little bit more behind them than there is some of these other teams. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs over the Redskins, even though the Redskins are playing good football right now. Raiders, Broncos. Broncos defensively, you figure they'll be in play. You figure they'll be good there. It's just a question of offense because the Raiders defense could be there. I actually like the Raiders in this game because Denver's defense is always going to be good, but I have concerns about their offense, and I think the Raiders just have a much better offense. While they can also, again, they kind of negate each other on defense. So, with that in mind, with Raiders having the better offense, I like the Raiders over the Broncos this week. Now, next up, let's see. I'm gonna Steelers Ravens, old school rivalry. Steelers defense not as good as it once was. Ravens defense still as good as it always has been. Offensively, the Steelers are the better team, so it depends if you think offense will win out or defense will win out. Steelers, I thought, laid an egg last week. I didn't think they played particularly well. Ravens played awful. Both teams coming off of bad performances. Usually these teams bounce. Both these teams bounce back after a bad performance. So you'd have to expect a very good game here from both these teams. I'm going to go with the Steelers here only because I think they have a little bit more in the way of offensive weapons that can beat a good defense. So I'm going to go with the Steelers, even though they're on the road, over the Ravens. Panthers and Patriots. really, this game lives and dies on whether the Panthers can score the football, because their defense, I think, will play better this week. I would hope so anyway, which should help keep the Patriots, in line keep them in shouting distance, which is what you need to do. Panthers need to score points. They just need to score points. That's the bottom line. I think the Patriots will win here. Even because I just don't know if I trust the Panthers to get this offensively turned around. So I'm going to go with the Patriots over the Panthers. But again, that could be that's an interesting game. It's a very interesting game, because if the Panthers come out offensively, then that's a good game. Let's see. I'm going to pick the Colts and the Seahawks. Actually, no, I'm not going to pick that game. Better game. Bills-Falcons. Defensively, the Bills are going to play well. The question is, can they score points? Atlanta, we know they're good on both sides of the football. What will they do? Atlanta's tough to beat at home. I think you have to take Atlanta here. But I think this is a game, based on the way they played last week against the Broncos, this is a game that I think is not in any way, shape, or form going to be easy for the Atlanta Falcons. And this could surprise some people. It really could. So that's why I'm picking it. But Falcons over Bills. 4-5. We got one more game to pick. I have a couple options here. I could take Bears-Packers. I'm not going to, though. I'm gonna take the Lions and the Vikings. I think that's gonna be a close game. Lions, defensively have got to figure out a way to get it done. If they don't, they're not going to go very far. I don't care how good their offensively they are. Vikings find ways to score points while their defense is really strong. So it's another one of those offense versus defense type games. I'm going to take the Vikings here in a close one over the Lions, only because I like their defense better than I like the Lions' offense at this point. But we'll see if the Lions can get down on the road. Offensively, you like them, but if they could ever do something with their defense, they could win a lot more games and win a lot more games. But I'm going to go Vikings over Lions. So Chiefs over Redskins, Raiders over Broncos, Steelers over Ravens, Patriots over Panthers, Falcons over Bills, Vikings over Lions. Your picks for week 4 of this NFL season. Again, we'll look at them next week, see how we did and all that good stuff, and do a quick summary again. Hopefully these games start to get better so we can do a little bit more with them. I can't talk about games like this when you can't tell who's good and who's bad. The quality of play is so poor. It's just too hard. You can talk about some overarching things like the Giants being 0-3 and all that kind of. You can talk about some overarching things, but when these teams are playing so poorly, it's hard to tell a lot of the things about them. That's why it's hard to even do a preview show at this point. NFL, I mean, this is a tough spot for the NFL right now. They got to do something about this, because every September can't be like this. I mean, it's been happening over the last couple of years, but this keeps getting worse and worse with every September that comes around. It has to change. I don't know what they can do about it, but something has to change, because the quality of play is terrible. All right, so I said I would address the elephant in the room, and I'm gonna do it really quickly, because we don't do politics on this show. We don't like to talk about the politics, and we try to. Obviously we mention real life stuff and we acknowledge it and all that stuff, but we don't like to get into it because we don't want. I like to think of this show as an escape from it, that kind of stuff. We talk sports, we talk entertainment, we talk wrestling. So I'm not going to do this long, drawn-out thing. Okay? Everybody's entitled. The first thing I want to say is this, because I think this gets lost in a lot of things in this day and age. Regardless of how much we disagree with something or someone, no matter how, and to us, each individual, okay, no matter how absurd it might be to us, no matter how it might seem to us, okay, no matter how you feel as a person, okay, this is a free country, okay? We have the right to our opinions, each one of us, okay? We have the rights to our opinions. We have the rights, as long as we're abiding by the law. We have the right to do what and say what we want, as long as we're abiding by the law. So I understand that what happened this weekend rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I get that. And I don't want to do this to make my opinion known, because here's the thing. I'm going to make my opinion known, and the same thing that's been happening over the last 4 or 5 days is going to happen. You're going to have people on both sides and start another debate about this. And that's going to be done no matter what. So I don't need to do that. I'm not here doing this to voice my opinion. What I'm here to do is acknowledge the fact that both sides have the right to express their opinion. And I think it's time that people acknowledge that. Because all I've heard in the last few months is, whenever people express, well, I wish people would back off. I wish people wouldn't say that, well, why are you getting involved in this? Why are you getting involved in that? Everybody has a right to get involved and say their opinion. Okay? That's the beauty of our country. So to ask somebody to stay out of something, or, well, your opinion doesn't matter, or, well, who are you to say this, who are you to say that, that's nonsense to me. Because this issue is an issue that needs to be talked about. And I think that's what bothers a lot of people, is they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to deal with it. And that could be for a number of reasons. And that's why a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to be faced with this. I'm watching football. I don't want to be faced with this. I don't want to discuss this. I shouldn't have to look at this. And my response to that is this. If you don't want to see it, if you don't want to watch it, leave the room, turn it off, or turn it off. If it bothers you that much, okay, don't watch it. Bottom line, don't watch it. Now, people you've heard are going to boycott. They're going to, I'm not going to watch the NFL. I'm not going to do this. If it, whatever. And that's your right. You have a right to boycott. You have a right to voice your opinion. You have a right to peaceful protest. You have a right to do all that. Keyword is peaceful protest. You have a right to that. It's like people have the right to agree with what happened this weekend, with what was done this weekend. You have the right to disagree. And I think that gets lost because people think there's this mentality that I don't understand, where if you disagree with somebody, people are like, well, I don't want to hear you. You don't have the right to say that. You don't have the right to that opinion. I have a right, me and everybody else in this country, really the world, if you think about it, have a right to any opinion they want to voice, as long as you're not breaking the law, which if you're just expressing yourself, you're not, as long as you're not hurting somebody else or, being violent or something. As long as you're not breaking the law, you have a right. Free speech. Okay? Remember that? You have the right to your opinion and to express it, as long as it's peacefully done. And I think it's very important to note, and I wish it's never going to happen because this gets worse and worse. But boy, do I wish that when we did have debates over very sensitive topics like that, like what's going on in this country, I really wish people would listen and read more than react. Because if you listen to people, and if you actually read what's said, what's written, listen to what's said, and even if you don't agree, and nobody's saying everybody has to unanimously agree, okay? I'm not saying that you have to change your mind or change your opinion. You don't have to. It's your right. Free country. The thing is this. Why can't people be respectful in debating things and discussing things? Why can't a conversation be had? Express your views, give your reasons for them, listen to the other side. Oh, okay, well, I don't agree, and here's why. But, all right, okay, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree and walk away or move on to another topic. Why does it have to be so hateful, so spiteful? Why does everybody think that they have to be right? Why can't important issues like what's going on in this country and what was being protested about this past weekend, why can't these things be debated and discussed respectfully? Some people do. I'm not saying that everybody doesn't try. There's a lot of people out there that do try, and God bless them. But there's a lot of people that don't. And there's a lot of people that don't know how to express themselves without causing more hate and more garbage to be spewed left and right. And that's what I want to say right now, is that regardless of what your opinion is on what happened this weekend or on what's going on, okay? Even if I disagree with you completely, and I don't even understand how you could think the way you do, I respect the fact that you have a right to that opinion. I respect that. And as long as you're not being violent, as long as you're not breaking the law, and if you're going to protest something, as long as you do it peacefully, fine. Fine. Even if I disagree with you, fine. We do this show. We do an opinion show. We do a discussion show. You got sports radio. You got news radio. Topics, ideas. You have all these panels. People discuss things all the time, respectfully. Why can't every discussion be respectful? Why can't it just be, you have your side, I have mine. Maybe it gets a little tense for a few moments, but then you know what? You say, all right, fine. I can see I'm not going to change your mind, get you to see my point of view. I apologize. We're just going to have to agree to disagree. Why can't it be like that? Because I can tell you something right now. We can get a hell of a lot of, we can make a lot of progress, and we can do a hell of a lot more in this country and in this world if people listen more, talked more, discussed and debated more respectfully than just spewing more hate and just disagreeing just to be spiteful and bitter. Because there are people out there that the first thing they do when they enter a discussion is, I need to be right, I need to be right, I need to be right, I need to be right. It doesn't matter if that other person makes some points that you probably do deep down maybe agree with, but you just don't want to acknowledge them because you don't want to be wrong, or you don't want to indicate to them that they might be right. So you push that off. You're like, you know what? I'm not even going to acknowledge the fact that you might have a good point. Compromise, understanding, patience are needed. Listening, understanding, comprehension, so many other, come on, people. Read, look at the words, understand, look at facts. Listen to each other, discuss respectfully, and agree to disagree. Try to be a solution, not part of the problem. That's all I'm going to say. Again, this is not about telling you all, not about telling everybody how to think. We all have our opinions. We all have a right to them. It's about just being respectful and having a discussion and listening and trying to understand and trying to find some common ground. because that's how we get things done. When we sit down and we talk and we say, all right, what is your side of this? Tell me what you think. All right, person B, tell me what you think. Person C, tell me what you think. All right, so how can we reconcile all these differences, and how can we try to work this out which works for everybody? Or acknowledge these feelings or these sentiments. How can we do that? That's what you need to do. That's what we need more of. And that's all I'm going to say. Mike's free to add whatever he wants. Again, it is something that's out there, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. I don't want to, go about this with I didn't want to go about this with just expressing my opinion, because, again, that just starts another big old thing. So I did something a little bit more general. And that's what I set out to do. So I can hear you. Go ahead.
Undermine some of what you just said.
Huh?
To undermine some of what you just said.
Okay.
Because I imagine this is about kneeling, right? It's kneeling during the anthem. All right. Have a discussion about facts. You can have an opinion about facts. Facts are you can't argue. Colin Kaepernick started kneeling during Obama's presidency. Injustices the black community faces in America. How they're targeted by police. Many cases of that. Can't argue those facts. Kaepernick got ran out of the league. Americanness. So, sees as an un-American action. Especially since more African-American athletes are kneeling, justices are not being solved. It is their way to peacefully protest. It is protected in the First Amendment. I don't mean to be saying this condescendingly, but you have a right to peacefully protest. Very First Amendment. The very first. That is also a fact. So if these gentlemen want to peacefully protest by kneeling during the flag, it's not like it's an insulting gesture. It's a solemn gesture. It's perceived as a solemn gesture. How many times have you seen a Caucasian athlete kneel? How do we perceive that? Oh, dang. What's the difference? One's peacefully protesting. Both are protected under the First Amendment. Surprise. Trump goes to war. Fell. Because of all of these athletes peacefully protesting. And he goes to the war with the NBA. But this is not about the NBA. It's about the NFL, because it's always about the NFL. So Donald Trump, African-American athletes kneeling. So what did you think was going to happen this week? More African-American athletes. They said what? 240? Something like a majority of players. Almost all African-American were kneeling. Mm-hmm. Perceived injustices. And there was no help from the White House. So Donald Trump goes to war. Meanwhile, this isn't an important issue. It's a very important issue, because in America, there is injustice. Of course there is. Saw it in Charlottesville. but good people on both sides. There's no fucking good neo-Nazis. I'm sorry. Good member of the Klan. There's no fucking good white supremacist. Let's just call that spade a spade. We went to war in World War II to wipe out Nazism. There's no good people. I digress. He goes to war with the NFL and the NBA. A lot of African-American players in those leagues, right, Brian? Mm-hmm. Can't disagree with the fact, can't have a discussion about that. That's how it is. Well, Hurricane Maria devastates Puerto Rico, and the fucking asshole doesn't tweet about that. Not only that, we have to talk about this before, and we've talked about it now. We have to cover them fucking kneeling in the NFL and them locking arms in solidarity and unity behind the message that there is this perceived injustice and that orange piece of shit. It's not a fact. Although, can't tweet about Puerto Rico. Can't send some Aryan aid to Puerto Rico. I mean, he does 4 days later and blames Puerto Rico for their misfortunes. Good Lord. And by the way, there are a lot of good places you can go to donate to Puerto Rico. Seen as unidos.puertorico.com. That's in Spanish, but it's also, you can Google search United for Puertorico.com. I heard that's the really, really big one. There's a lot of GoFundMe pages. There's a lot of them. I highly recommend and highly suggest that you go donate for Puerto Rico because they're still without power. They're going to be months allegedly without power. They need diesel. They need gas. Their hospitals are in major, major trouble, and there's a lot of sick people. Their hospitals are becoming overloaded. They want to try to avoid them being injuries. That's what they described it as. There are more important issues right now than black athletes kneeling in the NFL. Problem is not players peacefully protesting. The play in the NFL is trash. Play in the NFL is, but that's neither here nor there. Own issues and own kind of perceptions to worry about. As a country, this is not what we need to be worried about. That is a fact and an opinion, by the way. Especially since we've got these humanitarian issues. Puerto Rico, Houston, Florida. We almost lost health care again. Media cover that a whole lot. They have Mitch McConnell finally today, and I celebrated this. Finally said that we will not put the Graham Cassidy thing up for a vote because they don't have the votes. Thank God. Because that's 32 million more Americans who won't have health care. I just named two different things that happened that were more important. Donald Trump complaining about fucking kneeling. You know what? There are things in America that by debate. 100%. 100%. There are issues. Racism's not one of them. Mm-hmm. Peaceful protesting is not one of them. Those are not things that we should debate. Healthcare is not something we should debate. Should we fix the ACA? Absolutely. We should 100% discuss and debate how to best fix the ACA. 100%. That's something that could be bettered with a debate. How can we improve the quality and play of the NFL? 100% something that should be debated. Racism in America, this humanitarian crisis important things right now. All right, that's it. That's all I have to say. There are more important things that we should have been talking about than this bullshit fucking story about Donald Trump having such an issue. By the way, he would not have the balls to say it to any of these athletes' faces, by the way. Wouldn't have the testicles.
No.
Shriveled old testicles to say it to any of these people.
Absolutely.
Disinvited the Warriors. Disinvited the Warriors for the White House because Stephen Curry didn't want to go. LeBron James literally dragged him through the mud on Twitter. Not Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry, excuse me. I've been saying Stefan a lot. It's my bad. Maybe I've been seeing some Family Matters. Yeah. Stefan Urkel.
Right.
Stephen Urkel, everybody. Stephen Curry.
Right.
Kevin Durant didn't want to go. They didn't want to go. Wrote that beautiful, beautiful piece. Beautiful piece. Highlighting how stupid it was for Trump to do that, by the way. Stupid as fuck. So I guess long story short, it is a surprise. The orange piece of shit, opinion, not fact, although every day seems more fact. But it's still an opinion. Opinion only reflects me. It doesn't reflect Brian. It doesn't reflect Justin or whomever. It's my opinion, mine alone. If you agree with me, great. If you don't agree with me, great. Don't care.
And let me just point this out, because here's the
Amendment rights, everybody.
When I say we should have a discussion, and facts and all. What I said was this, because Mike is absolutely right. There are things in this whole thing that are going on in this country right now that there shouldn't have to be discussion about. They're facts, they're obvious, they're blatant, and it should be easy to decide what we should do, okay, and how things should be different or how things should be treated. My whole general thing was in relation to the issues in this country and people trying to decide how to. I'm not going to say get people to understand, because you're not going to be able to change people's minds. Maybe a few people you can.
And by the way, that's the other thing. I didn't mean it. I'm going to cut you off real quick, and you can continue after I'm done. Yeah, Brian, you said something earlier about reading and getting new sources. You have to pay attention to what you read.
Exactly. Yes.
Attention, because Sean Hannity is gone on record saying, "I'm not a news anchor. I am an entertainer."
Right.
Trump campaign and had to say that. So he's not a newscaster, he's an entertainer. Alex Jones is a salesman. That's actually a fact. That's not an opinion. He says it's complete trash, and it's generated and engineered for you to buy stuff from his store that you can purchase elsewhere for way cheaper. And by the way, Obama and Hillary Clinton do not smell like sulfur, and the frogs aren't turning gay. And if you've seen the memes, you know that's the truth. And on the other side, maybe both sides, there are tanks that may not be accurate. Right now. I mean, I like Keith Olbermann. I think Keith Olbermann is a very smart guy. Would I put him on the same level as Sean Hannity and Alex Jones? No. But Keith Olbermann writes stuff from a liberal standpoint. And I like Keith, though. So, I mean, that is what it is.
Right.
That's his viewpoint, and he's got a book coming out from that viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pay attention to your sources.
Agreed. Yes, and that's
attention to your sources, like NPR or the BBC or Al Jazeera are great sources of news. and Al Jazeera because they're international, and they are looking at it from an outsider's perspective.
My thing is, okay, and you heard what I said earlier about reading and understanding, okay? You see people post links to sources, legitimate sources about some of the facts that you mentioned and some of the facts that have been, out there. Good sources, legit sources, credible sources. And it gets dismissed as fake news or fake, or it's pushing an agenda. And then it's like, okay, so what, you will only to believe one person? The person that you think we should believe is the only person we should believe. Everything else, if it doesn't suit your agenda, everything else is fake. And that's what I'm saying. And I need to clarify, because I can see, like when you pointed out, we can see I'm bringing different things into it than just what happened this weekend. I'm basing this on everything, because it isn't just about politics and these important social justice issues that are going on. I've noticed this for the better part of a decade, okay, on much more trivial, mundane things, where people, on things that people just can't debate without being hateful anymore, or disagree without being hateful. I mean, that's not everybody. So I should be fair and say but it's a lot of people. So whether it's a trivial, mundane thing like debating something that happens in a ball game, or something, analysis of a film or something, okay? And I know that it doesn't not any way, shape, or form correlate to the issues that are at the forefront of things right now. I'm just throwing that out there, okay? But whether it's something more a mundane or trivial, or something that's huge and then very important social justice issues like are being debated and discussed now on social media and are the source of all this conflict and tying to the president and the things that he's saying. When you get into all this, okay, when we can't even respectfully discuss trivial things anymore, okay, that's a problem. And then, I mean, how do you expect to discuss things that, again, don't necessarily need discussion, shouldn't need discussion? Things like racism and hate and bigotry and all these kind of things. Those things aren't, they're very much speak for themselves. And how to deal with them should speak for themselves. They shouldn't be tolerated. They shouldn't be accepted. They shouldn't be encouraged or justified or ignored. My whole thing is, though, everything from the trivial and mundane to the severe, serious issues, none of it gets discussed with the majority respectfully anymore. There are still people that can. Like me and Mike, we can go off the air and we can disagree on something. Sometimes you can get into an argument about it, but at the end of the day, we'll agree to disagree and we'll move on.
Yes, even when you're wrong.
Even when I'm, whatever. But you know what I'm saying, though? There are still people out there that can talk about an issue, again, even something like sports or entertainment, or something serious like racism or other social justice issues, okay, and have those discussions respectfully. And even, again, racism is not something that should be discussed. If it's happening, it's happening. And it can't be tolerated. So Mike's right about that. So I was wrong to kind of lump it all together and try to, but my point still stands. On anything, we should be able to have a conversation and respectfully talk about it. Okay? Whether it's the trivial or the mundane or the serious. And then some things should speak for themselves. And we've seen a lot of that in this country over the last year. It's things that we never thought we'd see, and things that should not be accepted and should not be tolerated. Things that make you disgusted when you watch them on TV and you can't believe what's being said from some people and what's being shown. Those things, there's not much discussion to be had other than what the hell is going on and why are people doing that? Why are people saying that? Those things aren't discussion. Those things are easy to see. Can't be done. Shouldn't be done. Shouldn't be tolerated. Shouldn't be accepted. Shouldn't be happening. Things like how to better this country, how to educate people, those kind of things, let's discuss.
100%.
And they don't get discussed enough because we're too busy right now. Our president right now is too busy tweeting about what other people are saying about him. He's too busy watching TV and worry about what people are saying about him than what's going on in Puerto Rico and what's going around this country with all the natural disasters and everything else that's going on. But, you know, can't be bothered to focus on those things and trying to get things done that could benefit this country and benefit this world. Instead, he'd rather be worried about what's being said about him at 8 o'clock on some news channel or what's being said about him during a football game. That's what he's worried about. And again, I didn't want to make my opinion known, but I think that's fair to say. President of the country should be more worried about what's going on in this country and how to fix it and how to deal with it and how to make it better than what's being said, how he can better frame whatever narrative he wants to hype this week. And that's all that can be said. I just think, you know, again, I just wish there's a little bit more respect. I just wish people could respect each other a little bit more. I know, pipe dream. And again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's the country we live in. So, all right. We're done with the football. There's nothing to talk about in college. There's a few upsets, but nothing worth, you know, again, it's early. Once we get to the football rankings, playoff rankings, we'll talk about it. As we now move into some more, get into some more mundane things here. So there's nothing to really do in college football, so leave that alone. I'm going to be quick with the baseball because there's not a lot. Again, as has been the case with baseball this month, a lot of these races have kind of given out. The playoff picture is pretty clear. Some races are tightening up. You thought the Yankees were done for the division. Well, the Red Sox have dropped 2 in a row. The Yankees had won 2. And now the Red Sox now stand at 3 games ahead of the Yankees right now. And that's important because the Red Sox have 4 games for Houston to end the season. And Houston right now is playing for home field, so they will have something to play for. So don't, you know, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow is a big day in this AL East race. If the Yankees win tomorrow and the Red Sox lose, things could get interesting this weekend. The Yankees have clinched home field for the wild card game. They have clinched the playoff spot. I'm looking at Minnesota here to see if they have clinched. Minnesota has beaten the Cleveland Indians tonight, which is important because of the home field thing. But I'm just going to check and see if that has Red Sox and Yankees both clinched playoff spots. Cleveland has clinched their division. Houston has clinched its division. Minnesota is 5.5 up on LA. So Minnesota is going to clinch. So they're going to be in. So we know Minnesota is going to be in. So the Yankees and Minnesota are in. The Red Sox are in. So the AL, we know what teams are in out of the AL. As far as the NL goes, Cubs are going to clinch any day now. They're going to go. Nationals have clinched their division. Dodgers have clinched their division. Arizona has clinched a playoff berth. As for the NL wildcard, that's the NL wildcard race is an actual race. Colorado up 1 game on the Brewers, 2.5 on St. Louis. So that race is still close here with a couple of days to go. So we'll see if Milwaukee can sneak in. We all thought it was a foregone conclusion that Colorado and Arizona would both make it. Well, Milwaukee's making this interesting. They've stayed in it more. Give them credit. We all wrote them off, but they're in this. So, yeah, and look at Arizona winning 90 games. Good for them. Gosh. So this playoff picture is materializing. We have to keep an eye on the Yankees and the Red Sox. Betts has inflammation of his wrist, so who knows what he'll do over these next couple of days, whether he'll play or not. You figure he'll be out at least tomorrow and Thursday. Right now, either Cleveland or Houston will be the 1 and 2. Winner of the AL East will be the 3. More than likely here. And, your wild card team will be the 4. And we know the Yankees and Twins right now would be set for that game, with that game being at Yankee Stadium next Tuesday. So the AL teams are set. NL teams are all pretty much set as well, but the last wild card spot, that the number 1 team, the number 1 seed on the NL side of things will be the Dodgers. Nationals will be number 2. The Cubs will be number 3. And then your wild card team, whoever it will be the 4. So as we enter this last 5 days, a couple of things still on the line, which is good. Home field is still on the line. That one people don't usually care too much about, but, it's still there. Home field in the AL, I should say. The NL is pretty much going to be set, I think. Will the AL East be up for grabs? I think you have to at least look at it now. Tomorrow, I think, will be a key day for that, with Boston playing Houston for 4 this weekend. We'll see how that turns tomorrow. If the Yankees lose tomorrow and Red Sox win, it's over. But if the Yankees win tomorrow and the Red Sox lose, in 2 games before to go, and with Boston playing Houston, could get interesting. That's all I'm going to say. I still don't think they'll win it, but it could get interesting. The Yankees, I should say. And Sal's not pitching well either. He had another bad game tonight, so I don't know what's going on there. But and then, of course, on the NL side, we have the last wild card spot, and that's between Colorado, Milwaukee, and St. Louis. St. Louis 2.5 out, but still relatively involved, and Milwaukee there one back. So could get interesting. So we should have some things left on the board and to watch and to play and to keep an eye on as you go into these last 5 games of the season. So, if I'm to make a pick, I still think, and the AL side, I think it all goes like you would think. The Red Sox in the division, Yankees are the wild card, Yankees, Minnesota in the wild card game. I think Cleveland will end up being the 1, Houston the 2, because I think Houston has a tougher schedule having to play the Red Sox. On the NL side, 1's the Dodgers, 2's the Nationals, 3 is the Cubs, 4 Arizona or Colorado or Milwaukee or St. Louis, whoever wins that game. I still think Colorado wins, ends up with the spot. But I think regardless of who gets that last wild card spot, I think Arizona's the better team. I think they'll advance. And I think the Yankees will advance too. So I think those will be your 2 overall wild card winners. But so that's the state. There's nothing else to be said. We'll see how things turn out here, see if these races tighten up even more and what happens over these next couple of days here as we enter the final 5 days of the regular season. Aaron Judge, one of the big topics of the week was going to be Aaron Judge and his pursuit of the rookie home run record. Aaron Judge passed that yesterday. He tied it and passed it. He has 50 home runs, so he got that done pretty easily. The question now is going to be, he's going to win AL Rookie of the Year. Will he win AL MVP? It's going to be either him or Altuve. Could be either one of those guys. We'll see. That'll be something interesting to watch here in the next couple of weeks here, next couple of months. But that was one of the big storylines going into this week, and obviously that one's already culminated. So that's cool, but at least got done. At least one of these storylines in the last week of the season got done. Sometimes they peter out, but this one did. We'll obviously also be keeping an eye on Stanton, who's at 57 home runs with 5 games to play. Still has an outside chance at 61, looking dimmer by the day, but hey, he's very much in play. So, you keep an eye on him and see how everything goes. So there's a couple of things to look out for other than obviously the playoff races. See how far Judge goes with his home run total, and see if Stanton can break 61. So those will be the things to kind of keep an eye on here as you go through the rest of these last couple of days of the season. So I know I kind of rushed through that, but there wasn't a lot to talk about. We got to move, and plus, there's these races. Even though a couple of them are tightened up, there's not a lot there to mine as far as discussion goes. So we'll leave the baseball thing alone, and we'll jump into quickly the NBA. I'm going to go through as quick because they're pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to do the Dwayne Wade thing first because it's quick. I think the only thing surprising about Wade's buyout, is the fact that it happened so close to the beginning of the season. I thought it would happen earlier. maybe it was one of those things where they had to see how everything kind of, maybe had to see how everything kind of unfolded, and kind of, ended up. Maybe they had to see, put some guys through and see, kind of look at some players and see if anybody, was able to be cut, if there's anybody you didn't want, if you needed some help. I mean, there's a number of things, right? Reasons why things happen this late in the off season. Okay. But I do think it's strange that, it happened so late here. I thought it would happen in July or early August. It didn't. That's the only part of it that surprised me. I knew he would try to work himself out of this. The fact that it comes a month after Kyrie Irving's trade is kind of, I guess maybe that played a role. It's like Cleveland. I'm not saying that Dwayne Wade was involved with, talking with Cleveland, although he probably was at some point, talking just normally with them and talking with LeBron, I should say, and, talk about the prospect of maybe playing with them sometime in the future. But I think with Irving being moved, Dwayne Wade had to think, well, there's a spot for me. Because Isaiah Thomas is out. He had to think there was a spot for him. So I guess it shouldn't surprise me after that fact. I guess I just thought it would happen sooner. That's the big surprise for me. And here we are. He gets the buyout. Tomorrow, he has to pass through waivers. And once he does, it's been said that he'll sign with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know he was interested in the Heat and the Spurs and even the Thunder. He is interested in going back to Miami, but I think that's something that when he doesn't think he has opportunities to win another championship, he'll do. Because Miami's not close to that point. He sees an opportunity with Cleveland to go win a championship. He could have did that with the Spurs, could have been with the Thunder, but obviously Cleveland's been there how many times in a row. He sees the potential there with LeBron. He's played with them. So he goes to Cleveland, and he's going to, veterans minimum contract, and he'll probably start, and all of a sudden the Cleveland Cavaliers are stacked again. You got Dwayne Wade, you got Isaiah Thomas. When he gets healthy, they're good to go. Good to go. Do I think it's a good move? Yeah, it's a good move for Cleveland. Somebody with postseason experience, a good guy to have in the locker room. Nothing bad about this. He'll fit right in. And he's used to playing with LeBron. At this point in his career, he does need to play with other guys around him. He can't do it all on his own anyway. So I like this move, and I think it really benefits Cleveland. I think Cleveland, I mean, does it look, I already thought Cleveland was going to go to the finals again anyway, even without Dwayne. Now I think it's a slam dunk as long as they all stay healthy. So that's all I can really say about it. The only big thing to me was that it happened so late in the offseason. That's the only big surprise to me. And again, maybe that's just the way it had to happen because they had to wait till everything kind of ironed out with rosters and stuff. That's probably why it happened. And plus, after Irving got moved, that's probably what opened the door to this. So there's that. And Melo, which I want to briefly talk about. I'll throw the mic so he can get his opinions on these things. Melo, it's interesting because we've heard about Carmelo being traded for so long that it almost felt like it was never going to happen. It honestly never felt. And when Phil Jackson left, you thought maybe he'd stay there because you thought that was the big reason. But then again, the Knicks aren't anywhere close to this. And look, the Knicks are going to retool completely around Porzingis. They needed the clean direction, a clear direction, a new direction. They're getting that. So that means Carmelo has to go. And I think Melo was ready to go. Look, the guy's not getting any younger. His he's already wasted enough years of his career. He wants to go somewhere where he can instantly be a contender to win a championship. He wanted to go to Houston, which always surprised me. I know Harden's there. I know Chris Paul's there. But the whole Houston thing's surprised because he does not like Mike D'Antoni and him to not get along. So that always surprised me that he'd want to go play there. But he wanted to go there. They did this dance in July about him wanting to go to Houston. It didn't pan out. This just wasn't enough there. They wanted Eric Gordon. They weren't going to give him Eric Gordon. This couldn't agree on a package, so they started saying, hey, we need you to – will you go to somebody else? Cleveland wanted to get involved, but Cleveland doesn't have enough. So realistically, the Thunder was all they – and the problem is Carmelo has this trade clause. All right? Plus, they know the Knicks are desperate to get rid of him, and they probably know that Carmelo wants to leave. So that hurts the value of the player. You ain't going to get the package that you want back because of those factors. You're just not. And so the Knicks had to settle for what they thought was the best package they were going to get, which they got from the Thunder, and he goes to the Thunder. So I think the Knicks did a good job here? No, because if they did this a long time ago, they would have gotten a lot back. They waited too long. But I digress. Carmelo goes to the Thunder. It's a good deal for them. The concern you have is, I know Westbrook last year passed the ball a little bit more, enough to make him a triple-double god last year. I know that, he passed the ball enough to do that last year. I guess if he passes the ball like that this year, you like the chance of them being at least a top 3 team in the West, because you're going to have playmakers other than Russell Westbrook there, and Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. Look, here's the thing. George and Anthony aren't going to stand for Russell Westbrook hogging the ball. I'm not saying that them opening their mouths is going to accomplish them getting the ball more, but it's going to cause problems for the team, and then it's going to be have to nip in the bud, and then you figure it should work itself out, or Russell Westbrook will be out the door. Because, I think they're going to try to make an effort to try to hold on to Anthony and George after the season, and obviously they want to try to keep Westbrook too, but we'll see how it all pans out. I mean, Carmelo's got a few years left, but George, I think they want to keep with Anthony, and I keep Westbrook there too. And Carmelo's already, you got to think. Thing I understand about Carmelo is that he is egotistical. He thinks he's better than he actually is. Okay, and I like Carmelo, but he does. He said today, though, even though he's still, very much full of himself, he did say that he moved to power forward, no problem. So that's good, because he's going to have to play there. Do I think this will work? I think it'll be okay. I think they're going to have their problems because Anthony's just like Russell Westbrook. He likes to be the commander of the ball. I think Paul George might be the one that kind of gets left out in the dust a little bit, because I think Anthony and Westbrook are both going to make an effort to get their shots, and they're not going to be worried about Paul George. So it's not just going to be Russell Westbrook that I think could be problematic. I think it's going to be Carmelo Anthony too. So we'll see. Billy Donovan's going to have to put this thing together. And look, all eyes are going to be on them. Everybody's going to look at all 3 of these guys and say, can they work together? Can they share the ball? Can they be playmakers for each other and set each other up? If they do that, they're going to have a lot of success. If they don't, this thing's going to blow up in their face, and somebody's going to have to go. Bottom line. So it could end up being a good deal, because I think if they work together and they click together and they play together, I know that's a lot of ifs. Okay? And Russell does an even better job than he did last year of passing the ball, which last year was a miracle he passed as much as he did. But if he does a better job than even last year, okay, and they play like they're capable of playing, this could be a great deal, and this could be a very good team. If they don't, then again, it's not going to end well. So, Mike, your thoughts on Melo, Wade, any of the NBA stories here?
Did you throw it to me or something?
I did.
No. All right. Carmelo, huh?
Carmelo.
And Dwayne Wade, I guess. All right. Okay. So Ring of Honor last Friday promoted Honor, and they brought in Minoru Suzuki, dude in wrestling.
Right.
And I say that knowing Brock Lesnar is a real person. Minoru Suzuki, the baddest dude in wrestling. Suzuki got a 3.5-star match of me. By the way, don't search for that match on YouTube. You get just a video of 2 assholes commentating over it. You might want to go to Daily Motion for that masterpiece. Minoru Suzuki could get a good match out of generally everybody and look so menacing and violent and dangerous in the meantime. Honor brings him in. Cody Rhodes. Well, at least to wrestle. We didn't know he was there to put over Cody Rhodes until that night. So Minoru Suzuki comes in, and they run a quick, disappointing main event with Cody wins. By the way, according to everything I read, terribly disappointing. Wins. And they waste Minoru Suzuki. And I say this for reasons. One, Ring of Honor's total shit at the moment. Their way out, unfortunately, they wasted it. And Cody Rhodes, for some reason, isn't a good main event heel champion. And I say this because Minoru Suzuki's awesome, and nobody is blaming him for the shitty match. They're all blaming Ring of Honor and Cody for the bad decision. And number two, I feel like this has parallels. Here are the Oklahoma City Thunder bringing in this badass player in Carmelo Anthony, and they're going to waste him. Because Russell Westbrook doesn't pass the ball. Great move. They're going to build around Porzingis the next. They have to build around Porzingis. Carmelo Anthony didn't work with them very well. And to be fair, a lot of the players they were going to team him up with, Amari Stoudemire, Derrick Rose, injury prone, didn't work out. Porzingis is their player of the future. To go to Houston. Talk about a terrible situation there. The Cavs open up. Presents a great package. But Carmelo doesn't want to go to Portland. Why doesn't he want to go to Portland? Because to be in Portland because they're nowhere near a championship. City, well, they made the playoffs last year. With Carmelo Anthony, they're one of the top teams in the league. They just got Paul George. Averaged a triple-double last year. Great situation for Carmelo, right? Now they brought him in, and they're going to waste him. Just said it. Russell Westbrook doesn't pass the ball. I don't know how to say this more. Russell Westbrook is not a point guard. He is a two guard who just happens to be at the point. Why do you think Kevin Durant left?
Yeah.
Kevin Durant left. Kevin Durant was one of the most passive superstars in the NBA. He was also one of the most offensively gifted, if not the most offensively gifted player in the NBA. Carmelo really wanted a championship. He probably should have just gone to Cleveland. I put him.
Yeah.
But he should have just gone to Cleveland. Or Golden State. But Golden State didn't want Carmelo Anthony. Him and Paul George, Carmelo and Paul George are going to be there. And Russell Westbrook is... Oh, and look. If Russell Westbrook actually turns into a point guard this year, I promise, eat these words, wholeheartedly admit that I'm wrong. If Russell Westbrook, he turns into a point guard this year, I don't think it'll happen. That's why I'm saying it. But if he does, I'll eat it. I don't care. Carmelo didn't want to be in New York. He said he wouldn't go to training camp, but he was about it than Kyrie Irving. So, speaking of Kyrie Irving, wow, it's like Cleveland totally forgot he played there because who'd they bring in but Dwayne Wade? Bulls collusion. No, there's no collusion. Buyout from the Bulls. Immediately signs with Cleveland. Has to sign with the team immediately. Has to be a quick turnaround. Wonder how that happened. Quick turnaround. Signs a 1-year deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Wants to get that title. He's going to play. He'll be at the 2. He'll be at the 2 behind kind of tag teaming with Isaiah Thomas, who I hope everybody remembers is the point guard of the future for real. I'm not even being sarcastic about it. I think Isaiah's the point guard of the future.
Right.
So hopefully Isaiah because I think Dwayne's going to play a lot of point right now. He's a good player to bring in. It's a good move by Cleveland. Stacks him up.
Yeah, he gets a 1 year veteran.
Oh, he'll help him immensely.
Yeah.
He gets a 1 year veteran deal. So Dwayne will play. Dwayne will get good minutes, and by the time Isaiah is ready to come back, Dwayne Wade will need some time to sit down. Let's be honest here.
It actually works out perfect if you think about it.
Meanwhile, Derek, no means no Rose, is going to be riding the pine, kind of as a backup for both of these guys.
Right.
So Cleveland has a great situation. And by the way, Kevin Love might be activated more this year if he can stay healthy. LeBron James is LeBron James. They have Jay Crowder. Right? If Tristan Thompson decides to show up this year, Cleveland has a legitimate chance at winning the title. Be honest here. The Carmelo Anthony to the Thunder admittedly does make them better on paper. Makes them better on paper. And will paper turn into reality? I don't know.
We'll see.
Maybe not. We'll see. I have my doubts, much like I have all of the doubts about Houston.
Well, I have a lot of doubts.
Because when the pressure's on, James Harden is gone. Hey!
But actually, so is Chris Paul, if you think about it.
A little bit.
Yeah. That should be interesting in a Game 7 scenario.
That's funny. Houston in a Game 7. They're not going to make it that far. I
was talking about the first round.
So was I.
Oh. They'll make the playoffs. They'll make the playoffs.
I know they'll make the playoffs, but they're not getting to any Game 7.
Right. Well, it's going to be an interesting season, and I think that's the last domino to fall because Anthony's gone, Irving's gone, Wade's been signed. So I think that's the last domino left on the board for the NBA offseason. You can't remember a time when the NBA offseason was this interesting late into September, but.
Well, I mean, right now the pieces are gonna lie where they fall, essentially.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been moved, your next opportunity to be moved is going to be at the All-Star break, because usually nothing happens until then.
And this is a situation too, folks, where because not Anthony, because Anthony's contract, I think he's got at least a year left after this. But Paul George, remember, and Russell Westbrook, I think they're both free agents next year, if I remember correctly. So, right. You know what? We'll see what happens at the trade deadline. Because if things don't go as planned for whatever reason, okay, or they get the suspicion that there's no chance in hell that they can, and I think with George, it's already a suspicion they can't keep him, then you'll see something go on at the deadline probably. See if they can get some pieces back. But we haven't seen these kind of mega deals at the deadline the last couple of years like we thought. So I would assume it would probably last till next offseason before we see any significant movement. But you never know. All right. Lastly, for tonight, we got that. There's not much else to say about those two things. So news broke this morning, and we're going to be talking about this again. We can't really say a lot about this because it's a developing story, okay? But news broke this morning about a scandal involving NCAA basketball coaches who were among 10 charged with fraud and corruption. Now, I encourage you, there's a lot out there about this, but I encourage you all to try to read an article about it. Go ESPN, go to a sports website and read the article about it because there's a lot of details here. I'm going to throw out some quotes and some paraphrasing here just to kind of set it up, and then we'll talk about it. 4 assistant basketball coaches from Arizona, Auburn, Oklahoma State, and USC were charged Tuesday morning in a federal corruption investigation. And again, this could only be the beginning of this whole mess. It's a 3-year FBI probe that focused on coaches being paid tens of thousands of dollars to steer NBA-bound players towards sports agents, financial advisors, and apparel companies. Federal prosecutors in New York announced the charges of fraud and corruption against 10 people, including Auburn's Chuck Person, obviously a big name from the NBA, Oklahoma State's Vermont Evans, Arizona's Emmanuel Book Richardson, and USC's Tony Bland. Each of the coaches is charged with bribery, conspiracy, solicitation of bribes, honest services fraud conspiracy, honest service fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and travel act conspiracy. Those are the charges. The U.S. Department of Justice said each of the coaches faced a maximum sentence of 80 years in prison. More charges could still be filed. The FBI also arrested James Gatto, director of global sports marketing for Adidas. Merle Cole, another Adidas employee. Kristen Dawkins, a former NBA agent who was recently fired from ASM Sports. Munish Sood, a financial advisor. Jonathan Brad Augustine, president of the League Initiative and program director of the Adidas-sponsored One Family AAU program. And Rashawn Mitchell, a former NBA official who founded Thompson Basketball Clothing, a custom clothier for athletes. Apparently, the offices of ASM were, which again represents NBA players, was raided Tuesday. Phone lines have been cut off, and employees were told not to come to work. The FBI conducted an elaborate undercover operation starting in 2015, which was kept in secret. The NCAA was not made aware of the investigation until Tuesday morning. Wiretaps, surveillance video, undercover agents, and cooperating witnesses were used in this investigation. The FBI was able to document coaches accepting bribes to steer their players to certain financial advisors and or business managers. In other cases, high-ranking Adidas employees worked with others to pay prospective student-athletes' families to ensure the players sign with Adidas-sponsored schools and then sign with Adidas once they turn pro. There was warnings given out by the FBI to coaches that might be involved in similar schemes, warning them that they know what they now know the signs of these kind of things, that they'll find out, basically warning people not to do this. Let's see. There's a lot of other stuff here. I'm just trying to get to the big stuff here. I'm just trying to pull up. Let's see. Louis Martin Blazer III, who was a former Pittsburgh financial advisor who was accused of stealing $2.35 million from five clients by the Securities and Exchange Commission, was the cooperating witness who helped the FBI in its investigation. Blazer, who founded Blazer Capital Management, was accused of investing money into movies and entertainment ventures without his client's knowledge between 2010 and 2012. As part of his plea agreement, he agreed to plead guilty to securities fraud, aggravated identity theft, false statements and documents, and 2 counts of wire fraud. Among other charges, Blazer was accused of a scheme to commit wire fraud in or about 2000 through in or about 2013 by making payments and loans to NCAA athletes in order to induce those athletes to retain the defendant as a financial advisor and or business manager. The FBI complaint, this is important, this part here too. The FBI complaint against Gatto and others also included a reference to a public research university located in Kentucky, identified as University 6 in the complaint. And University of Louisville interim president Gregory Postel confirmed in a statement it is the school mentioned. Okay, so Louisville is that school. There was also a reference to a private research school in Florida, and sources told ESPN it is the University of Miami. The allegations against the unnamed school in Kentucky include payments of $100,000 from Adidas to the family of an unnamed player identified as Player 10 to ensure he signs with the school. According to the complaint, Gatto, Cole, Dawkins, and Sood worked together to funnel $100,000 to the player's family in early June, and Dawkins told the others that he did so at the request of a Louisville coach. Player 10, who is described in the complaint as a top recruit, who is believed to be Brian Bowen, a 5-star forward guard who signed with Louisville on June 5th. The FBI said the telephone records show Gatto spoke directly with the unnamed coach multiple times in the days before the player publicly committed to play for the Cardinals. The complaint said another high school player was paid to sign with the Cardinals, and Dawkins paid the money by funneling it through Augustine. Rick Pitino said the allegations came as a complete shock to him. The FBI also alleged that Gatto, Cole, Dawkins, and Augustine attempted to broker a deal to sign another high school player to Miami, an Adidas-sponsored school, for $150,000. According to the complaint, the payments from Adidas to Player 12 were allegedly requested specifically by a coach at Miami. Rest of this coach 3, who allegedly called Gatto directly and who, according to Dawkins' code in August, he knows everything, and in particular knows something's got to happen for player 12 to commit to attending University 7. There's a lot more here. Again, there's articles you can read, but I just want to get to the gist of it. So this is all comes from an article on ESPN.com and by Mark Swabeck. You can look. I encourage you to look at the article. There's a lot here to mine, a lot to read here. So I'll just throw the mic first. Mike, your thoughts on this?
Corruption? Corruption? In the NCAA?
I know.
No. Well, I'm surprised Chuck Pearson is one of them, but in a way, I guess I'm not. Huh.
That's a lot in there.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. 4 coaches and the University of Louisville.
And Miami.
And Miami, University of Miami. Excuse me. Being investigated. USC just hired former FBI investigate for them.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI has been investigating the criminal influence of money on players and coaches in 2015. By the way, Mark Emmert, professional piece of shit. That's a fact, not an opinion. Come out and try to distance the NCAA from this thing. The NCAA was not a part of this. Absolutely not. Mr. Emmert, Mark Emmert's got a lot of other problems because none of these multi-million dollar programs can afford to pay players. No.
Wow. So,
guessing by that's the culture. That's the culture of the NCAA. Are you surprised that these coaches and kind of want to help these players out in a way? They're directing them towards agents and deals and that. No, I'm not surprised at all because these players are fucking starving. Yeah. Is this an unbelievable breach of ethics? 110. Do I understand where the players are coming from? Yup. Was it wholeheartedly illegal? Yup. Because this whole thing reeks of collusion. It 100% does. And yes, these agents probably did not have these players' best interests in mind. Because the bribery allegations suggest a despicable breach of trust. Yeah. So, am I surprised? No. I'm not going to speak too much here, but yes. Am I surprised there's corruption? No. Am I surprised these players are trying to get something out of it? Litigation ongoing, yes, and that's kind of where it is. And by the way, I'm glad Adidas got named in it. Certainly not Nike, who has certainly never done something like this.
I should also throw out there, and I don't know if you heard this or not, but there was a lot of speculation today on a number. I listened to a number of sports shows today and watched a number of sports shows today. There's speculation that Rick Pitino could be fired. Because
his tenure has been exceedingly controversial. So
yeah, look, we all know he's a Hall of Famer. He's a legendary head this is the third major scandal for him there.
At least.
Yeah, and the other ones are well documented. But and look, he's not obviously he hasn't been named specifically in this, but there's ties to this. Players that have been, Bowen in particular, who signed on June 5th, I believe. In particular, are linked to this apparently. So that's obviously going to direct you towards the head coach and this program. So it does tie to him. This is, even though he hasn't been named as specifically being involved in saying, nothing's been said. He hasn't been accused of anything yet involving this case. Okay. So no, there's no charges against Rick Pitino or anything here. But I think if you're the school, all this stuff keeps happening. And even though he has yet to been accused of anything in this particular case, at some point you're like, we need to we have to do something here. And you might be a great head coach, but we keep having these scandals. We keep having these things happen. And whether you're personally involved or not, or directly involved or not, I mean, at this point, it's the third major one. So I'm not surprised by the speculation. I don't think anything's imminent. I think they're going to wait and see. There's some people that think if they shouldn't wait because it'd be worse to do this to these kids in the middle of the season than to do it now, give them at least a month to adjust to not having Rick Pitino as head coach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I see that point of view here too, because firing a head coach especially of a team that's expected to be good, mid-season is this a disaster waiting to happen, to be honest. But we'll see. I mean, there's speculation. Nothing's imminent, I don't think. It's all just speculation. You can understand the speculation because of what's happened with Louisville's program. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. That should be interesting to watch unfold. I'm going to be quick here. Mike's, reaction's very much mine. Look, college sports in general are just brimming with corruption. I think we all know that. I think I think there's people that would have told you that even before all the scandals of the last 10, 15 years. Okay? There's a lot of things that go on, and a lot of it's driven by the students, student athletes, which I think is such a bogus term at this point, but it's driven by them and needing money for their family, needing money for supplies, needing money to live, whatever. It's driven by that. It's also driven by the greed of the NCAA, the greed of the university. It's driven by a lot of things, okay? There's a lot of things here. As we've discussed over the years that we've had the show, and we've gone through these various different NCAA situations. This is not the thing that I think is funny is this shows you how incompetent the NCAA is. I mean, not that we haven't been seen that proven before, because it's been proven time and time again for how long that they're incompetent. Because here's the thing. The FBI did this investigation for 2 years now, and they're still doing it. But when they came out, we get this detailed list of everything. Every detail that you could want initially is in these reports, in these documents, in these news reports, right? So you get all these details, you pretty much get the whole picture of what's going on and understand that it's a developing story, more could come out. And all this happens, the NCAA has no clue that this investigation is even going on. I mean, I know it's an FBI investigation, but now look, the NCAA is probably turned their back on corruption for decades now. Okay, we know that. All right, they pick and choose what they choose to be upset about, and what they choose to sanction, and what they choose to whatever. I don't know, Mike, if you're familiar with this, but there was a story, I don't know if it was a year ago or whatever, where a girl had to use the hose on campus to clean her car off, to wash her car. And so she did that, and the school got fined for apparently they viewed that as an illegal benefit to that student athlete.
That's a little ridiculous. I did not know that.
I actually heard that on the Michael K show today. That's where I got that from. But I couldn't. To me, it was just like. But that's not the only. There's other stories too, and you know that. But they pick and choose what they think should be penalized, and when they should be outraged. And then a lot of times, what happens is the media or somebody doesn't have a horse in the race here finds out about something a school has done. and says, "Oh God, I gotta go to somebody with this," and that's when the NCAA is like, "Oh wow, we better come out and say something. Oh, we better say we're investigating them because boy, if somebody comes out and releases this to the media, or if this comes out, we're gonna have egg on our face." And that's what pushes them to finally acknowledge problems. So they either decide what they're gonna come out with and penalize and punish, or they get their backs are put up against the wall and they have no choice but to come out and be like, oh yeah, we're investigating them. That's what they do, you see. So they can't, this is not their thing. This is the FBI's thing. And how they choose to deal with it, we'll see. But there's going to be a cloud over 2 schools this year. And this is a very difficult scenario because the NCAA is going to have to do something about it on top of what the FBI is going to do about it. Obviously, charges, arrests, jail time, all that stuff. We all know that. But what does the NCAA do to some of these teams? What does the NCAA do to these teams? Do they do anything at all? That's going to be interesting to see happen as the story develops. But is anybody actually surprised that there's corruption in college sports? No. Does it surprise you that this many people, that some of the people that are involved? Maybe. Nothing. I mean, if somebody like Mike Krzyzewski or something might shock me at this point, but very few other things would. Very few other things would. We'll see. In particular for Louisville, Miami, this should be an interesting few weeks. We'll see. Any other schools get involved? Any other universities doing this? The FBI basically put out a warning sign saying we kind of know, we have an idea of how these things work now. We can kind of track these things now. So we'll see if they end up busting anybody else in the near future. Because look, again, this is something. If there's sports media, sports shows, anybody, or if you know anybody with connections or something at universities across the country, you probably heard that stuff like this goes on. Maybe not to this extent, but that some different things go on that, or you hear rumors, I should say, because that's usually what it is. It's rumors. It's speculation. And then you're kind of like, oh, isn't that wrong? And you're like, I don't know. Is it? That's what people respond, because really very few people seem to know what's wrong and what's right when it comes to the NCAA rules, and when it comes to college athletics and how things should work. People end up, basically always acting like they don't know what's going on. Or, oh, I didn't know that coach was doing it. He did it on his own, or I didn't know that employee did it. They did it on their own. I never was aware of it. That's the popular thing, which sometimes is possible. Okay, it is possible, but sometimes you just kind of, all right, that's something that everybody kind of goes to when they're in these kind of situations. And, how much do you buy it at this point? Not everybody can have that excuse. Not everybody can believably add that as a viable reason. But we'll follow this. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it ends up. It's going to be an interesting story to follow here. And as we approach the college basketball season especially, it's going to get interesting. So, all right. So that is it. We got through everything we had to get through. There was a lot. We probably could have did a lot more on some of these things. We just didn't have the time. So, but we did what we had to do. So, as always, the show might be over. It does not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to the show. Continue to have your voice heard. Keep sending us your feedback. We need it. We want it. Please keep sending it. Topic ideas or breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, or wrestling that you want us to cover. Questions about the show and the scheduling of the show, reactions, comments, opinions, and things we talked about on the show, things we said. Any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Please remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And, of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. And make sure that you like our page once you find it, once you're on it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. for the latest information about the show, especially when it comes to scheduling. Obviously, last minute and postponements and delays happen. If something's coming up that we know about, we'll always tell you in advance. But sometimes last minute things do happen, and the only way and the best way for us to reach you all and let you know that is by social media. So make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter, so you have the latest the best access and the only access to the late breaking news related to our show, any big updates, and of course random thoughts we post on there as well. So if you want the latest news about the show and much more, make sure you follow us on social media. Just look for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and Twitter, and make sure that you follow us, and you can have access to all that and more. 2 ways in which to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. You can either stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411 on those sites, and you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites, where you'll have access to every episode we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode that we produced since mid-October of 2015, all the way up into tonight's current episode. Those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you wish. Just search for us on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411, and you'll have access to all those episodes. If maybe you prefer to listen to us on the go, maybe you don't like seeing us on screen, maybe you're interested in older episodes of the show, if any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. And once you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites, where you'll find every episode we've ever produced in nearly 7 years been doing this show. So that's every episode from our original Blog Talk Radio one from October 2010 to January 2011. Everything from our Talk Shoe run from January 2011 all the way up to mid-October of 2015. And, of course, all of our Google Plus and YouTube episodes from mid-October 2015 all the way up into tonight's current episode. All those episodes available. All those Google Plus and YouTube episodes transferred into audio format for your convenience. All episodes listed from the most recent date, that being tonight, all the way to the oldest, way back in October 2010. All those episodes available for you to listen to anytime you want. Maybe you're a longtime fan, let's check an episode from way back when for the check out an episode from way back when again. Maybe you're a new fan, want to check an episode like that for the first time. Maybe keep up with current episodes, missed a pirate episode, want to check out an episode again. If any of that applies to you, check us out again on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search for In the Spotlight 411. So Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, always. Keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. Again, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, always. Keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on all those sites. And just search for In the Spotlight 411 on all of those sites. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
Time for bed.
Thank myself for another great show. Pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching and listening to this later or at some point, thank you to you as well. Thank you for your patience tonight. I didn't explain why we were late. There was some issues, technical problems. First of all, my internet was out for a while. That was part one. Then I just couldn't get started, so that was part two. So thank you for your patience. Again, Thursday, entertainment and wrestling, box office beat, TV highlights. Our fall TV report card continues as we look at the new and returning shows as we go along here. We'll continue that. We'll do some wrestling. We'll talk about the fallout from No Mercy, Raw, and SmackDown. We'll do all of that on Thursday next week. We'll also talk about some of the upcoming changes on Thursday to the show as well. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Next week, we have we'll do the NFL preview at some point. I'm thinking Tuesday, but we'll see. Obviously, we have all the big sports stuff, MLB playoff preview, MLB playoffs live in-game discussion, NFL, any other sports stuff we have to discuss, we'll talk about. Wrestling. Next week, we'll be previewing WWE Hell in a Cell. I think we'll do that on Thursday. I just don't know if it'll be a full all wrestling show, if we'll just do a segment. I don't know. Obviously, we do our usual entertainment stuff as well. All that will be coming up next week. Again, any changes to the show don't start next week. If any, at the earliest, they'll start the week after. So don't think anything's going to happen next week. So keep that in mind. So that's a little bit of insight into what's to come here. So there you go. All right. So with that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great Wednesday, and a great Thursday. See you back here for our next show this coming Thursday night, broadcasting and streaming live on YouTube at 9 o'clock Eastern Time this Thursday night, September the 28th. Until then, have a good night, everybody.